everybody, I'm Jen,
And I'm Tammy.
and they call us Woo.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to take a little opinion from one of our listeners, or a few of our listeners, who have asked us to talk a little bit more about developing your gifts and what that looks like. And Tammy and I have very different points of reference on this and different points of view on this. So we're going to talk a little bit about this today. So Miss Tammy, you're the one who brought this to our attention, that our listeners were asking for this. So tell me what your experience is and what you'd like to talk about today.
Yes. So I thought this was really a good time because I've been getting more comments in my personal life about it too. And I think some of it is because I've been sharing some of my experience, and some of it is just like it's really fun when people feel like they are empowered to understand and embrace that we all have gifts and we all have connection. Because I think sometimes when people have the capacity to use that connection with clarity, then sometimes other people are like, oh my God, it's so like special and I wish I could do this, whatever. And the truth is we all can in a lot of different ways. And that is what I thought was kind of interesting, especially coming from the two of us, because we have very different experiences in connecting with gifts. Which I'll have you talk a little bit more yourself, and some of our listeners, I know I've probably read your book and stuff too, so might be a little bit more familiar with that. But I mean, really, you've been experiencing this your whole life in this current physical life that you're in. And for me, this is more recent. And so I think sometimes when people are asking about that, it's because we all have this like soul yearning to connect with who we really are, what we can really do, what our purpose is, what our gifts. Like we always are kind of doing that in the human world anyway. Sometimes people see it as a viewpoint of like, oh, what job should I be in or stuff like that. But a lot of times we're answering this really deep soul desire to understand who we are, and at a soul level. And so I know I've referenced this a few times in this season, but I had my experience was like a kick in the door down kind of experience is what I've been saying, because the truth is there's been a very long time that I did have a deep desire to understand things, but it's been a long process for me if I really think about it. There was a long process for me of overcoming some past trauma around fear of some of this. And then once I got to that other side, I mean, we had many conversations a long time ago where I was kind of dabbling, but I was like, I don't know. I still remember, it still sticks with me to this day. There was a time when I asked you, I said, I'm just a little, like, I think there's something there, but I'm a little concerned that if I open the door, I can't close it again. And you're like, well, you can always close the door, but once you open it, you're not going to want to. And that stuck with me, but I understand it even more so now. And part of what I understand now about my experience is certain things, like when I came into this life, I made certain agreements and I made certain decisions about what I wanted to experience before this became a thing that I was connected with. But in hindsight, it was always kind of like leaking out of me. That's why I say like doing it with clarity.
That sounds disgusting, Tammy.
Not like bodily fluids, but like
it's just seeping from your pores.
Well, I mean, legit, I feel like I see that in a lot of other people too, right? Like, especially the people who are at the point where they like deeply want to know and they're actually asking. It's like, it's already been kind of happening, but they just don't really know exactly what. So they're just not able to see it with clarity yet, and they're wanting that. But so for me, like, hypnosis was a big part of this for me, and clearly it was supposed to happen the way that it did, because when I signed up for this second round of hypnosis that had nothing to do with any of this. It was about financial mindset. And then it uncovered all these deeper things. So I remember the one that really made the difference for me. It's not like all the rest of them leading up to it didn't, but the one where everything started to feel like it changed really rapidly was when we had uncovered enough layers and released enough stuff. And I was able to, because up to that point we had done like past life regressions. I had regressed into a time in between, and I had all these like wonderful pieces of clarity where I was able to do more releasing. And then I had this session where I was able to connect on a really deep level, understanding that I didn't fully trust myself. So I had this moment, and it wasn't a sad moment. It was like a relieving, releasing, loving moment where I could kind of see this, my little inner self as a child, and have this conversation where I was like, you were right the whole time. I'm sorry that I didn't understand that, but I do now. And it was just this beautiful moment of like love. And because I mean, when we come into this world, we're so close to our soul form. We might not always know how to explain things, but we also haven't learned how to judge those things. So we're just kind of like, we do know a lot when we come into this world, but there's experiences we want to have. So none of it is like, no one should judge themselves for where they're at in this whole process. But it was after that that things started shifting really rapidly. And it was a lot of things that opened up all at once. Like from not even knowing what an Akashic record was a while back to now, you know, it was that same session that I got clarity. I was channeling my higher self, and I got clarity on exactly what it is that I'm supposed to do. And it stuck with me. And then when I got the first experience of actually being able to connect with the records intentionally, it was the most warm, loving, like the feeling of universal love is the most beautiful feeling that I can't even fully explain it. But it was like, oh my God, I don't want to be anywhere else right now. It felt like home. And that was like this melding of things that kind of opened up the rest of this, where, I mean, for like 2 weeks, I was like barely here in my body. I was just like asking questions and up in the ethers, and started to get all of these things kind of rapidly happening, where I realized there was all these different things I could do when I was connecting with people's souls, and I was seeing what their souls wanted me to see, and all of these other things, and channeling, and all these things that happen. And it's not saying that everyone's story is going to be exactly the same, but I also knew that I asked for it to happen that quickly. Like, I'd finally experienced whatever I needed to experience, and I was ready. So for me, I guess it would seem very rapid, because there's people I haven't talked to in a few months that would probably be like, what? Because now it's like reading Akashic records and channeling and speaking with people who have crossed over, and ancestors, and all this other stuff that is happening. But it all feels very good. It's all like just this beautiful feeling of being in a place that makes sense. So I think when people are getting to the point that they're yearning for that, they probably have had this thought for a long time. And even if they didn't physically understand, their soul has been wanting that. But also, you know, my experience isn't necessarily how everyone's is going to be. And but ultimately it doesn't matter, because the truth is we all get to have whatever experience we chose to have coming into this world. And getting to that point where you're able to embrace that allows for your own soul's continued ascension. Because, I mean, everything is always evolving and ascending. The entirety of everything, different, you know, races, humanity, and others, and then all of us individually, we all get to continue this beautiful process of growing and ascending and experiencing. And so we will get to that point when we want to get to that point. There's no need to judge any of it. And I guess for me, I thought it was kind of fascinating because, again, if you had told me this even 6 months ago, I'd probably been like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's really going to happen that way. And then I started to notice when I was interacting with certain people that there was a lot of that desire that they were talking about. You know, some of it is like they think that you can do this amazing special thing, which is true, but they also need to understand that they can also do amazing special things.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you talk about things that you've learned about, you know, if your soul's been around a very long time, you might have a different point of clarity and ascension. But it's not like you're any better than a newer soul. You know, I kind of tried to explain it the other day where I was like, well, you don't judge a baby for being a baby. Like they were born when they were born, you know, like they have an equally amazing experience as you do. So I guess I just want the message to really be clear to people that looking internally and starting to learn how to trust that inner knowingness is probably going to be your first step in trying to move through the things that you want to move through and experience what you need to experience or want to experience in order to start to be able to feel like you have more access to your gifts. But understand you probably already are experiencing some of them. You just don't fully know. Like I know I logicked my way out of a lot of things. But now from a different perspective, I'm like, well, that actually was pretty illogical, but it was okay. Because at the time, it was just what needed to happen.
Yeah.
So,
well, I also think that part of this is looking at our own human nature of comparison. Because a lot of the time when people are looking at this, you talked about you do all these special things. And I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people who are on their path opening up and they're starting to experience things, and they don't experience things the same way that I do, or they don't experience things the same way that you do, or that she does, or that he does. And there's a lot of comparison that comes in, and they start thinking they're doing it wrong. Therefore, I'm not actually doing this. And like they try to put human logic on it. Like, if this person does it this way, I should do it this way. And nothing is the same for every single person.
no.
So even within the same subset of what we call gifts, really our innate abilities, everybody could be doing that just a different way. Like everybody has the ability to do everything. But like when I see a vision, I might be getting all kinds of pictures and images. Somebody else's vision might be energy. It might be hearing. It might be something completely different, even though we're using similar words or we're using the same words. And I think that's one of the hiccups that we have with people starting to experience things is human beings want to compare. Like they want to be in alignment with other people. They want to be in community with other people. And if we're different, we can't be in community. And so
I really like the way you put that, because that also then takes the judgment out of that, right? Like if you find yourself doing that, it's because the truth is none of these feelings need to be judged.
No.
But if it's the strong desire for community, it makes sense that you want to align yourself exactly, and maybe you are not fully connecting with what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Which is also quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, and so I've been talking about this a little bit with my friends down here in Oklahoma, that for my whole entire life, I have not been surrounded by people. Well, not my whole entire life, but a good portion of my life, I was not surrounded by people who understood what I was seeing and what I was experiencing. And because of that, I did not step into developing my skills more. Like I relied on the skills that I had, the abilities that I had, and I stayed in that place because there were not people around me to show me that it was normal. I didn't have community. And so it was like, oh, I can get away with just doing this. I don't need to learn. I don't need to grow anymore. I don't need to. And now, as more people are starting to open up, as more people are starting to awaken, and more people are starting to seek out building their abilities, people who weren't necessarily born experiencing these things, they're now going to books to learn about these things, to open themselves up. And the terminology that they're using is not terminology that I use. It's not because I didn't learn from books. I learned from experience. It's kind of like street smarts and book smarts. Like sometimes you might know the same things, but you're not going to be able to communicate it well to each other. And so I've been talking about this lately, how it's like all these people are talking to me about things and we're talking about the same things, but there's a piece of me that's like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, because what the hell is that word? Like, because it's not my experience. Like I'm not experiencing these words as people are writing them down in books. And so,
well, I think it's access to the internet too. Some of that terminology is becoming some stuff that people can grab from and use. Yeah. But you had a much different experience.
Exactly. So now it's like, it's really interesting looking at the comparison aspect of that, because sometimes I'll be talking to people who are very, very new to this. And I recognize in our communication that they're like, oh, you don't know anything. And I'm like, no, you take a step back and think about the words that are about to come out of your mouth. But it's like, it's recognizing that we kind of need to check ourselves and look at our own comparison and the judgments that we make based on not only the way that people are communicating the things that they're experiencing, but looking at what they're actually experiencing. Because a lot of the time, people who have been experiencing for a long time, who have been out of the woo closet for years and years and years, they're not going to have the same terminology. They're not going to have the same book smarts as somebody who is now coming into their gifts, who are learning it through a process of opening through books and courses and things like that. It's really interesting to witness it and witness my own mind around it, because at this point I'm like, oh, do I really want to be in community with people if I'm going to have to like explain myself and prove myself because I don't know the terms that all these people around me are using? It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a different aspect to look at, because from the clarity I've gotten, there is... So as right now, humans as a race are in a period of ascension. So the fact that people are all wanting to start to connect in different ways or whatever, that's all part of it. Like it's this like wave of awakening that's happening, and each wave has more people who can support them as they go. But so there might be a different form of understanding, or there might be, it's kind of like something that I learned from a book that was written in 1900 could have been true in 1900, but maybe now there's more clarity and it's a little bit different now. But when it comes to this kind of thing, there's really no need for judgment, because a seed of truth is a seed of truth regardless. And if you really are connecting with yourself rather than feeling like you need to compare, which maybe part of it is this deep desire, because even that in and of itself is not a bad thing, because sometimes when people are doing this is because they really are yearning to know these things. Yeah. But maybe they feel like they have to put on a little bit of a performance to prove themselves, or like, oh, I belong here, when if you're in a space where you don't feel like you're being accepted, then maybe that's just not the right space for you. And it's not that anyone's doing anything wrong. It's just not the right space for you. There's others that you can connect with. We all have so many people connected to us in our lives that offer so much to us when we're ready, when we need it. And that will feel good. That will make sense. If it doesn't feel good and it doesn't make sense, or if it feels like you have to work really hard to be on the same level, or something someone says doesn't really resonate with you, take the time to kind of, sit with that, because it could be that that's just not the right space at the right time. It could be that maybe that is correct information, but you need to process your own things, whatever. But with this ascension, it's being able to access things like humanity in general, our physical, spiritual, energetic, all of those forms are changing, the planet, everything, but none of it is for bad, right? Like, it's not this bad and good thing. It's not I need to prove what I know or don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's happening whether people want it to or not. So the best thing we can do for ourselves is try to live in that feeling of love and non-judgment, because it's all based in love when you get to the core of all of it. Even things that don't seem like they make a lot of sense. We've talked about this before too, this idea of good and bad and how it's much different from a different perspective. But the more we can learn not to judge our own feelings and sit with the things that feel really true for us, the more we're going to be able to open ourselves to those gifts, or understand the next steps that we want to take because of something that we wanted to experience. Like, I know my experience in my early life was intentional. There was a type of connection that I wanted to learn from that, and there was a type of experience I wanted to have from that. So it coming at this point in my life was for my highest good. But once I was ready, I was like, let's kick this freaking door down, because let's do this. That might not be everybody's path either.
No.
But it's interesting to hear from your experience when you talk about growing up with this and having this your whole life, and it always being something that you were aware of. There's things that I didn't quite think of being in that space too, where you also needed to kind of like continue your process, so you didn't feel like you were kind of stagnating in the space that you were in, which is not something I would have thought of, right? Because I think a lot of times people would see someone like you and be like, oh, well, they've always known, like, all the things. But we all are on a continued path of growing. And that's really interesting. When you said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And so you were longing for a community in a different way, a community that understood and embraced that. And now you're kind of shifting again, because some of those communities feel like now you're ready for something else, which is fascinating.
I think part of it is that it's just the way that people have learned things is so different. I remember one of the psychic development classes that I took, the instructor was very old school. She's been in the business for a really long time. And I remember hearing from some of the other people in the class, she does things the old way, and like things have changed so much. And there were a lot of people that were like, I'm not coming back to this class because she doesn't understand the new information. And it's interesting to look at that, because it's kind of the position that I feel like I'm in sometimes. It's like, yeah, I do a lot of things in old school way, because that's the way that I've learned. And going back to terminology, I think a lot of it is terminology has changed so much that, like, if you don't have the same terminology, it's hard to communicate that you're actually talking about the same things. And it's like, you're talking about a book in the 1900s, like the way that they spoke about things, the way that they spoke about things in the 1900s, and their understanding of things and how they could say them out in public is very different from how you can say things, even varying from state to state in the United States. Like, the way that you speak about things is very different. Like, I found out from another practitioner down here, the word metaphysical here means something completely different, because there was like a whole thing about persecution of people who were using the word metaphysical, and like there's a whole nother meaning here than there was in the state that I used to live in.
Sure.
Like I could say it all over the place there and people understood what I was saying. If I say that here, it means something completely different.
Okay.
And so terminology changes, the way that we understand things change, like just like science changes, like it changes over time. And being able to connect with people is all about communicating. Even if you are talking about the same thing, it's communication.
Well, that's, I think, a really good point to bring up too, though, is when you are seeing it, if you truly are in a place where you can see it from the highest level, everything has a seed of truth in it. All forms of spirituality have a seed of truth in them. So more often than not, when you're talking about certain terms or terminology where you are looking at from a perspective of, I don't know exactly if I would use that word, but I know we're talking about the same thing. You're communicating from a place of soul understanding versus being stuck on whether or not the word is the correct, quote unquote, correct word.
Yes.
But ultimately, none of that matters. That's taking something from a broader scope and putting it into this tiny little box, and all of it is love and all of it has some truth to it. There's no reason to judge any of it.
Yeah.
There's so much value in people who have been able to understand and use their gifts with clarity for a very long time. When I started looking into the records, I was looking at Akashic records. I was looking at material from many different periods in history, and I was asking for clarity as I went. Like, what part of this applies to me and what part of it is different for me? Because I wasn't judging it like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, thank you so much for putting this information in a place where I could access it. Yeah. Now, all I have to do is figure out what applies to me and what doesn't, because it's not about how everybody else wrote it down. It's like, thank you for helping to give information. So now we're to the point where we have access to so much information. Yeah. But if we're busy looking at how other people are doing it, then we sometimes forget to hear that voice, that inner knowingness that's like, this is for you. This is not necessarily the way that you need to do it right now, whatever that voice is telling you. And you absorb it all because it's all for the good, right? Yeah. Like, there's no need to gatekeep any of it.
Yeah.
Because that's not what this is about. This is about all of us being able to rise to an even higher vibratory level, all being able to do amazing things where we can all access different dimensions and do all the kinds of things that we didn't think were possible right now, but will be. And that's how this evolution works. And for me, I feel like it should be exciting. If it doesn't feel exciting, if it doesn't feel like it's something that kind of fills you up and you're like, wow, this feels really good, well, then maybe explore some other things.
Yeah.
As I mean, like you said, we have access to all of the things, but sometimes our soul's purpose is more focused than that. Or we can do all of the things, but there's something that feels really good. And you're like, yep, that's what I'm supposed to do. That could change over time too as your soul continues to develop. But once you feel even like little glimpses of that, it's like addictive. You're like, this is so good. I want more. And I hope that when people are asking for that information, they're also understanding not to feel the need to judge themselves about how fast they think they're going, or whether or not this makes sense or that makes sense, or what word people are using, because that's ultimately it's about what the soul wants versus what, word we're using. Yeah. Because I mean, I find value in taking information from all different sources, because then I can get a really well-rounded viewpoint. And I know there will be a point in time that I'll probably be in the same position where someone's going to come to me and use words that I'm like, I've never heard that one before, or do something in a way that I haven't experienced in this human life. And I'm going to have to try to understand where they're coming from and try not to judge that myself or the other person. And hopefully they will also be able to understand that it's, I can't say that it's easy in the sense that, it does require us to really do some like deep internal work, which can be very challenging, because oftentimes it's releasing fear and things that kind of are things we want to be able to work through. But it feels much easier when you get to that other level and you're like, oh, wow, everything really is connected. Everything really is love. This all makes so much sense. And that's where we're all heading.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that you were talking about people's perspective a little bit ago. And this morning when we were reading, my fiance and I read together every morning. When we were reading, what we were reading was about how perspective, so different perspectives that people have, all of it varies. So perspective is temporary, but truth is eternal. And so it was looking at, as human beings, we believe that a lot of the time we believe that our truth, what we call our truth, is eternal truth. But a lot of the time we as human beings confuse that with our true perspective. So our perspective, our personal perspective, and how we experience things is very different from every person around us.
Sure.
And it was a good reminder for me this morning to look at, okay, when I'm experiencing something, am I looking at this from my truth, my perspective, or am I looking at this from the higher vision, from the perspective of non-judgment and love and the eternal? And it just came back while you were talking. I was like, oh yeah, we were reading about that this morning. So I think for anybody who is opening and starting to receive their gifts more fully, receive their abilities more fully, it's important to look at what you're feeling called to, but also allow yourself space to explore in whatever way you feel called to do. Yes. Because a lot of the time we go through these steps, we go through these processes, we want to develop certain gifts. And sometimes we're not allowing our gifts to develop in the manner that is easiest for us, that is more flowy for us. Because if we just allow things to be and we allow ourselves to grow in the spaciousness that we've provided for ourselves, it will make it much easier to accept those things and integrate those things rather than forcing ourselves to learn very specific things.
Right.
Because it's not really learning, it's remembering. And
yeah, that's a good reminder too.
Well, and if you think about like those days that you lose your keys and you're like, where did I put my keys? Where did I put my keys? Where did I put my keys? And you're like frantically searching and trying to find your keys. It's so hard to find your keys because you're in this space of searching. And when you finally sit down and just let yourself go, okay, my keys will come to me. Like, it will be fine. Your brain goes, oh yeah, that thing, I remember. I put them right there on the counter in the bathroom when I went to brush my teeth. Like, so it's really giving yourself the spaciousness to be in that flow and remember.
I like that phrasing. And I also like the reminder that there might be systems or programs that you really are drawn towards. But also, you don't need to judge yourself if you get to a point where you're like, I feel like that's done for me, or I took what I needed from that, and now I want to move on to this thing. That's okay. And it is okay to feel really drawn to something. And even if you have an experience where like, that's not quite what I expected, honor the fact that maybe that wasn't for you at that moment. But either it could be at one point, or you were just opening the door to exploring that particular subject. And you can find other ways. Other ways will come to you, like you said, if you allow them to come to you. But it can be as simple as, if you feel connected in nature, go out into nature and just spend some time sitting there, allowing yourself to feel anything you want to feel there. If you feel like others are with you, or if you feel like something particular about an animal you saw or whatever was meaningful to you, don't question that. Just allow it. And more often than not, it was true. And if there's something that you already trust within your body, like what was really important for me was understanding that when I was starting to explore that knowingness and remembering all the things that I needed to remember, the one thing that I knew I could trust and I always trusted was my physical body. So the sway test worked for me, where if I felt like I needed clarity, I could ask, and I knew I trusted that response. So I didn't overthink it or question it for once in my life. I was just like, this works for me. And then the more and more trust you build, the more ways you get opened up to different ways of things being presented, because now all of a sudden you have the frame of reference for it. And you go, oh, I know what this thing is. I've experienced this before. This is popping up again. This must be true. And then you can keep on working from there. So it's like the different ways that you see, hear, feel, however things come to you, start out with the thing that you know you trust, and just allow yourself to trust it, and it will keep coming. The more you trust that voice, the louder it gets.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. But I hope this gives people the perspective of understanding that with these gifts, there is this feeling that you are embracing your power as a creator. That is absolutely something we should be embracing. Does that make you special? Well, yes, in a very amazing way. We are all creation and creators. We can all create any of the things that we want, any experiences that we want. That also means that we're part of the whole. So it's not from a place of judgment. You can embrace this power without feeling like you need to prove something, or like even looking at people who can do things that you don't feel like you can do yet, or you're not aware that you can do yet, as like somehow so special that you can never attain that. Like, we're all in the same playing field. This is all working together. This is all for the good of all of us. And once you start to be able to experience those things, and you start to get clarity on some of the connections of the different people and others who have been in your life, it might be a little mind-blowing. We're like, oh, this totally makes sense now why this person did this and then I did this. Wow, this was really for everyone's best. It's just letting all those things flow and trying not to judge yourself or anyone around you for how things are being experienced, trying not to over-elevate certain people and put yourself down low, or the other way around, trying not to put yourself in a position where you feel like you are the only thing that has this piece of information. If that's true, then your job is probably to give that information to everyone else. That's usually what that means. So we're all in it together, and there's nothing that we really need to do other than experience and allow and love and support. And that's sounds probably more complicated if you're not in that place yet, but you'll get there. We all do.
Agreed. Yep. That's true.
Yeah. I just thought it would be fun to talk to people about how amazing everyone is, and hopefully this makes sense. It's like I talk to my daughter about this sometimes, and she's like, I don't always understand what you're saying, Mom, but I always try. I'm always listening. And I'm like, that's awesome, because that moment will come to you where you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, there's so many people that have been in my life, Jen included, that have said things in the past that were filed away, but then after I had a specific experience, I was like, oh, I get it now.
That's what weird thing she was talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I never think it's bad weird. It's always like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I get just this little like epiphany of this makes so much more sense now. And what I love about her is her willingness to be open, but also embrace the idea that it's okay if right now that doesn't fully make sense. Right now, your intention is to experience more things, then go experience more things. It'll make sense at some point. Yeah. So she's like, cool, I'll do that.
Well, and honestly, not everything needs to make sense. Some things we're just not meant to retain, and some things we're just not meant to fully integrate into our system. And like having that information come to us, there's probably a purpose for it. But if you don't understand everything and don't get everything, that's cool too. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things that I don't understand or get. And I have just, at this point, I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of those things. Yep, that's not my thing.
And that's all good.
Geography, one of those things. Not my thing.
Yeah, I'm beginning to figure out that bookkeeping, although I can do it, is definitely not something I enjoy. So we all have some of those things.
That is what bookkeepers are for.
Yeah, that's their realm of genius. And
exactly.
They can do that all day long, and I'm fine.
Yes. So I think this week everybody should, since you brought up the realm of genius, I would love to hear from everybody what they believe their realm of genius to be. Mm-hmm. So, for those who do not know what a realm of genius is, Tammy, would you like to explain that phrase?
Sure. So, my understanding is it's where you feel your best. It's something that you're really good at, you're really interested in, it lights you up. It's something that you enjoy doing. So sometimes people find that in their work, like a specific thing, like myself as a business owner, there's certain things that I do that are definitely like, that's my jam. I love it. And other things that I'm like, I've had to learn over the years. And like that, I don't enjoy it. It doesn't actually like help me. It just frustrates me. But there's others that do very much enjoy that. So something that like lights you up, you want to learn more about it. It's something that you really enjoy. Everyone has different realms of genius.
Mm-hmm. So Tammy, what's your realm of genius?
I have a lot, but right now, Akashic Records is definitely something that I find my most joy in, and being able to connect with people on a soul level and offer support on that level. And then as just generally like a human living a human life, I find a lot of joy in being able to teach.
Okay.
That's definitely one of my big things.
Sweet. For me, it's I love to greet people, which sounds silly, but people used to always say things about like, oh, they're just going to be a greeter at a store or whatever. And people would look down on that. I'm like, that's the most important, like, lovely job ever.
Everyone who does it is so happy, though.
I know. It's the best job. So greeting people is one of my things. And then creating personal ceremonies for people. I love to create ceremonies for people. Like, it's totally my jam. I love it so much.
I love that too.
If I can greet people and create ceremonies in the same space, I am so excited. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that and working booths at expos. I love that because I get to greet people over and over and over again and then share knowledge with them about things. So yeah, those are my things.
That's lovely. Yeah, I do hope people share some of that with us. And if you feel like you are coming into any type of understanding about things that you like to do, or opening up to gifts, that's more than likely part of the connection to your realm of genius. So share that as well.
Well, share it. I want to read it.
Me too.
And we will see you all next week.
If you want more woo, please feel free to check the links in the description. Of course, we love hearing from you, so keep letting us know all of your lovely ideas. Have a beautiful day, our wonderful woo mates.